I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for over 10 years. We met in college, got married right out of school, and for most of that time I honestly believed we had a good, stable relationship. She was the kind of girl everyone admired, beautiful, smart, confident, and seemingly devoted. Or so I thought. Looking back now, I noticed small signs that I ignored. She was a little distant sometimes, a bit more secretive about her phone, but I chalked it up to work stress or just her being a woman who needed her space. I never imagined that she was hiding something so monstrous. We had a pretty normal life. I worked as an engineer, she was a marketing executive. We had plans. We talked about buying a house, maybe having kids someday. Everything seemed fine until about a month ago when I started noticing things that didn't add up. First, she was more defensive about her phone. She'd lock it when I entered the room, and her texts suddenly became more frequent. She'd come home later than usual sometimes, claiming client dinners or late meetings. I just brushed it off, thinking it was work stuff or maybe she was stressed out. But then I found her phone one night when she was in the shower. I was just curious, honestly, and I never expected what I'd see. There was a message thread with someone named Tom, and the texts were suggestive. It wasn't just friendly banter. It was explicit. They were talking about meeting up, about sex, about her being tired of the boring marriage. I froze. My stomach sank. I thought, nah, this can't be real. But I looked further and there were pictures, sexy selfies she sent him saying she missed him, that she couldn't wait to see him again. I didn't even know how to breathe. My mind spun. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she do this, after 10 years, with my best friend no less? And I'd never even suspected a thing. She always played the part of the perfect wife, attentive, caring, loving. That night I felt my entire world shatter into pieces. I kept her phone, trying to make sense of what I'd seen, but everything was a blur. The next day I didn't say anything right away. I was in shock. I just sat on the couch looking at her phone, at her messages. She was sleeping in the bedroom, probably oblivious to the storm coming. I kept thinking about how she lied to me for weeks, maybe longer. How she manipulated me into thinking everything was fine. I remembered how she'd brush off my questions about her late nights, her changing attitude, her coldness sometimes. Eventually, I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't keep this inside, not anymore. That night I waited until she came home from work. I was nervous but furious. When she walked in, I just lost it. I told her I knew about Tom, about her lying, about everything. Her face twisted into this nasty smirk, like she was annoyed I caught her. She kept insisting it was just sex, just a fling, that she was nothing serious. That's what she said, nothing serious. Like that makes it okay. She had the nerve to call it a stupid mistake, a lapse of judgment, that she loved me but she was just caught up in the moment. I looked at her and felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could she be so callous, so manipulative? She was trying to downplay what she did, acting like it was just some innocent thing, like she didn't cheat with my best friend over and over. I was furious, but at the same time it hurt so much. I realized our entire relationship was a lie. Everything I believed in, everything I worked for, gone in an instant. That night I just sat there staring at her, trying to process what she'd done. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly broken. After she finished her little sob story about how she fell into the moment and didn't mean for it to get this far, I felt like I was listening to an alien. Her words just bounced off me. I couldn't believe she was trying to justify cheating on me with my best friend Tom. That bastard. I never really liked him that much, but I never thought he'd do something like this either. Turns out he's just as much of a piece of shit as she is. She kept saying, "It's not what you think, but what was there to think?" A decade of marriage and she's out there sleeping with my best friend. It felt like I'd been punched again, only this time right in my soul. I was angry, yes, but mostly I was numb. I couldn't even cry. I just stared at her, waiting for her to say more, waiting for her to tell me it was all a mistake, a bad decision, she'd stop. But she didn't. She just kept shrugging, acting like she didn't care. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to scream, to yell, to break something, but I just sat there. My mind was racing. I started thinking about all the years we spent together, the holidays, our plans for the future, the way she used to look at me. All of it felt like a sick joke now. How could she have lied about everything? Was she ever truly happy with me? Did she even love me, or was I just a placeholder for her? And Tom, God, Tom, I've known him for years. We've had our moments, played basketball, gone out for beers. I trusted him. Turns out he's just as much a piece of shit as her. Cheating with my wife. That's low. That's beneath betrayal. That's like a punch to the gut that leaves you gasping. I kept thinking about what their secret nights looked like, how she'd leave the house pretending everything was fine, but behind my back she was with him. I wanted to confront him too, but I was too broken to even call him. I felt like I'd lost my best friend and my wife in one night. I couldn't believe I was actually living this nightmare. The worst part is how manipulative she was being. She kept insisting it wasn't about love, just sex, that she was confused and didn't want to hurt me. Yeah, right, hurt me. She already did that. She hurt me more than I could have ever imagined. I moved out of the bedroom that night, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stand to look at her. I slept on the couch, staring at the ceiling, feeling a mix of rage and despair. I kept asking myself, how did it come to this? How did I get here? I tried to think back to the good times, but all I could see were flashes of her with Tom, the lies, the sneaking around. I felt like I'd been living a lie for years, and the truth was finally staring me in the face. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and everything felt heavy. I looked at her side of the bed, empty, of course. She'd already left for work, no doubt trying to act like everything was normal. I wondered if she even cared that I knew. Did she think I was just going to forget and move on? I was angry, yes, but underneath that there was a deep sadness. I realized I was mourning the marriage I thought I had, mourning the trust I'd lost, mourning the future I'll never have with her. I knew I had a choice. I could pretend I didn't see what I saw, forgive her, and try to move on. Or I could face the brutal truth and do what I never thought I'd do, end it all. But for now, I just sat there, staring at the wall, waiting to see what would happen next. The betrayal cut so deep, I didn't know if I'd ever recover from this. All I knew was I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this one, not anymore. Over the next few days, everything felt surreal. I kept replaying that night in my head over and over. The images of her leaving Tom's apartment, the way she looked when I confronted her, all those lies she threw at me, it was just sex. It didn't mean anything. I love you, I swear. But I knew better. I saw the messages. I saw the pictures. That was real. Everything else felt like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I started packing some of my stuff, just little things at first. I didn't want her to know I was planning anything serious. Honestly, I just needed space to breathe, to clear my head. But inside, I was simmering with rage. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this after all we'd been through? I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I should have seen it coming, but the truth was, I didn't want to believe it. I did want to face the fact that the woman I loved was capable of this level of deceit. One night, I finally decided I couldn't take it anymore. I sat her down, told her I knew everything, that I had the evidence, and that I was done pretending. Her face twisted with annoyance, like I was interrupting her busy schedule of lying and manipulating. She rolled her eyes, scoffing. "You're overreacting, Mike. It's just sex. It doesn't mean I don't love you. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." That was her favorite line, "It's just sex." She kept insisting it was no big deal, that she was confused, that she didn't want to hurt me, but I could see through her bullshit. I remember feeling this strange mixture of anger and sadness. I told her I wanted a divorce. I explained that I couldn't stay with someone who lied to me for so long, who cheated on me, who brought my best friend into our betrayal. Her response was more of that typical bitchy attitude. She insulted me, called me insecure, said I was overreacting because I was jealous. Like that would somehow make everything okay. She kept telling me she'd never do this again, that she'd cut Tom out, that she just needed some time to think. But I saw her for what she was: manipulative, selfish, completely uncaring about the damage she'd done. That night I sat alone, feeling like I'd lost everything. My mind kept racing. I thought about all the moments we shared, all the plans we made, and how they were all just lies. I couldn't sleep. I felt betrayed to my core. It was like my world had crumbled into dust, and I was just standing amidst the rubble. I wondered how I ever trusted her, how I ever thought she loved me. That trust was shattered now, maybe forever. The worst part, I realized I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, for not realizing that the girl I thought I knew was hiding a completely different person beneath the surface. The girl who'd lie, manipulate, and cheat. All with a smile on her face, acting like she was the innocent victim. She had no remorse, no guilt, just that bitchy smirk when she told me it was just sex, like it made everything okay. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, to tell her how much she'd destroyed. But I held my tongue. I knew I had to think about my next move. Deep down, I already knew what I was going to do. I couldn't stay with her anymore. I couldn't look at her without feeling disgusted. I just needed time to process everything, to decide whether I wanted to try to fix this broken mess or cut my losses and walk away for good. The pain was raw, and I knew it'd take a long time to heal from this betrayal. But one thing was clear: I wasn't going to accept her bullshit anymore. Not after finding out that she'd been lying to my face for months, maybe longer, sleeping with my best friend and playing me like a fool. That realization stuck with me like a thorn, and I knew it was only the beginning of what would be a long, painful journey. A few days later, I finally made a decision. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into staying, not after everything I'd found out. I called a lawyer, started looking into the paperwork for divorce, and made up my mind that I was done. The hardest part was telling her I was leaving for good. When I did, she just sneered at me like I was the one overreacting. She said, "You're making a huge mistake, Mike. You don't know what you're losing." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear her apart, but I just turned and walked out of the house. That moment, walking out the door, was like walking into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I felt this mix of relief and heartbreak that I'd never experienced before. For years, I'd given her everything: my trust, my love, my life. And she threw it all away for some sex with Tom. The first night apart was hell. I stayed in a cheap hotel just to get some space. My mind kept replaying all those moments: the lies, the cheating, her cold smile when she dismissed my feelings. She kept calling and texting, trying to convince me to come back, to talk it out. But I didn't answer. I knew that was just her way of trying to keep control. I wasn't falling for it. I was done being manipulated. I knew if I stayed, I'd just be a pawn in her game, and I refused to be that anymore. That night I stayed up most of the time, thinking about what I'd do next. I felt angry, so angry I could barely breathe. But beneath that there was another feeling, what I now realize was a kind of deep sadness. I'd loved her, believed in us, trusted her, and she'd just thrown it all away like it was nothing. I kept wondering if I'd ever be able to trust anyone again, if I'd ever find someone who genuinely cared. The next morning I decided I had to face it. I had to confront what this all meant. My feelings were all over the place: hurt, rage, betrayal, emptiness. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going back. I couldn't stay with a woman who lied, cheated, and called her affair nothing serious. That was just her way of trying to make me feel like it was no big deal, but it was. It was everything. It destroyed the foundation of what I thought was a solid marriage. I spent the next week telling my close friends and family what happened. Some were angry at her, some told me I deserved better, and a few questioned whether I should try to save it, but I knew I couldn't. I was done. I couldn't keep pretending that this was just a misunderstanding or a mistake. The woman I'd loved for 10 years had been sleeping with my best friend behind my back, lying, manipulating, and dismissing my feelings every step of the way. Every day I felt a little stronger, a little more determined. I started going to the gym, throwing myself into work, and trying to rebuild some sense of normalcy. But there's a part of me that still hurts, a part that feels like I've lost a part of myself. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I learned that you can't trust someone blindly. People are capable of some pretty horrible things when they think no one's watching or no one will find out. The betrayal opened my eyes to how fragile love can be, how easily it can be broken. And I won't lie, I still feel that sting every day, but I also feel a strange sense of relief. I've taken the first step toward healing, even if I don't know what comes next. All I know is I'll never let anyone treat me like that again. That's the lesson I've learned. Trust is earned, not given, and never, ever take it for granted. Months passed and I thought I was doing okay, better than I had in the beginning. The sting of betrayal was still there, but I was slowly rebuilding my life. I moved into a new place, started dating casually, and focused on my career. Still, every so often, I'd find myself drifting back to those memories, her sneering face, Tom's betrayal, the lies that seemed to echo in my mind like a bad song I couldn't turn off. One night, out of nowhere, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was anonymous, but the message was clear. You should know the truth. Lisa and Tom weren't just sleeping together for fun. They were planning to run away together. She was going to leave you for him. It wasn't just cheating. It was a full-blown conspiracy. I felt a rush of shock and relief all at once. Part of me had always suspected she was more than just a cheater. She was manipulative, conniving. But hearing it from an anonymous source validated everything I'd suspected. It made me realize that her lies were even worse than I thought. She wasn't just cheating. She was actively trying to destroy what we had. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how she'd lied to me for so long, how she'd been planning her escape for months, maybe longer. I thought about the moments she played the innocent victim, then the real story behind her back. It made me furious, but also oddly vindicated. I had known something was off, and now I had proof. I decided I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I needed to do something, something to make her regret what she'd done, to make her understand that she couldn't manipulate me anymore. I started planning my revenge, in a way that would hit her hard but wouldn't make me look like a psycho. I wanted her to realize that her actions had consequences, that she couldn't just lie her way out of this. First, I gathered evidence. I found some of her emails and texts that she thought were hidden messages to Tom, where she discussed her plans to leave everything behind and start fresh with him. I took screenshots, saved them securely. Then I contacted a private investigator I knew just to confirm what I already suspected, that she'd been planning her escape for a while. It was sickening, but I needed to know the full story. Once I had everything I needed, I made a decision. I was going to confront her again, but this time on my terms. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some naive fool who got played. I wanted her to feel what she'd put me through, to see that I knew the truth. That night, I waited for her to come home from work, feeling a strange mix of rage and calmness. I was about to show her that I wasn't going to be her puppet anymore. When she walked in, she looked annoyed, like I was bothering her. She tried to brush past me, but I stopped her. I pulled out my phone, showing her the evidence, screenshots of her texts, the emails, everything. Her eyes widened for a moment, then the bitchy smirk returned. "You're nuts, Mike," she snapped. "You're just paranoid. All this doesn't mean anything." I looked her straight in the eyes and told her that I knew about her plans to run away with Tom. I told her I knew she was trying to leave me, that I saw the proof, and that I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. Her face turned red, then pale. Then she started yelling, calling me crazy, accusing me of stalking her, of obsessing over her. But I didn't back down. I felt a strange sense of power, knowing I had the upper hand. I told her that I was done being played, that I was divorcing her for good, that she was a liar and a cheat. She tried to deny everything, but I just kept showing her the evidence. I wanted her to see that I was serious. This was the end of the line for her. She finally broke down. Her bitchy mask cracked and she started crying, shamming herself more than I ever could. She begged for forgiveness, said she didn't mean to hurt me, that she was just confused. But I didn't listen. I knew her game. She was just trying to manipulate her way out again. I stood there, calm but firm, and told her she'd burned every bridge with me, that her lies and manipulations had destroyed what little trust we had left. That night, as she begged, I realized I'd finally taken back control of my life. The revenge wasn't about petty payback. It was about reclaiming my dignity. She thought she was clever, that she could lie her way out of this mess. But I made sure she knew I wasn't the fool she thought I was. I'd uncovered her secrets, and there was no way back from that. I was done. Finished. And honestly, it felt like the first real step toward healing, even if the scars will stay with me forever. In the weeks that followed, I finally felt like I was starting to breathe again. The house was empty most of the time, and honestly, it was a relief. I didn't have to pretend anymore, didn't have to fake my way through the days. I filed for divorce, and the legal process moved quickly. She wasn't interested in fighting, probably because she knew she was caught dead to rights. It was almost too easy, but I didn't care. The damage was done, and I was just glad to finally be free from her lies. What's crazy is how much I've learned from all this. I used to think love meant trusting blindly, but now I see it's about respect and honesty. I shouldn't have ignored the red flags, but I also should have seen her true colors sooner. I was blinded by years of good memories, but those memories were built on lies. I realize now that people can pretend to be someone they're not, and sometimes they do it so well that you don't see the truth until it's staring you right in the face. I've started to rebuild my life from scratch. I'm focusing on myself, therapy, working out, reconnecting with friends I pushed aside. The pain doesn't go away overnight, but it gets easier to manage. I don't hate her, at least not as much as I used to. I just feel sorry for her. Sorry she's so messed up that she thought lying, cheating, and manipulating were the answers. Sorry she ruined what we had because she was too selfish to see what she was losing. Looking back, I realize I was naive. I thought I knew her, but I didn't. I thought I knew us, but I was wrong. She was never the woman I thought she was. She was just good at hiding her true self until she couldn't anymore. And Tom, that whole time I saw her as my best friend, but he was just a snake waiting to strike. Now I see that I was just a pawn in their game, and I refuse to be that anymore. The biggest lesson I learned is that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who you really are. It forces you to confront your strength or your weaknesses. I'm not perfect, but I'm better for having gone through this. I've learned to set boundaries, to trust myself again, and to recognize the signs of bullshit before they tear everything apart. So, if you're ever in a situation where your gut is telling you something's wrong, listen. Don't ignore the red flags. Because when you find out someone you love has been lying and cheating behind your back, your world can fall apart fast. But you can pick up the pieces. You just have to be willing to face the truth, no matter how ugly it is. That's what I've learned, and I'll carry it with me forever.